Hello, welcome back to the Joy of Code. This is Michael Curling again, and this is another round of the teacher commentary. I hope I don't look too tired. It's the end of a long day, but I think I want to get another episode of the teacher commentary in, because I think if I don't keep going, then I'm a bit afraid I lose momentum and stop this series altogether, and I don't want to do that right now. So in the interest of keeping going, I'll try to see whether I can talk a bit about what we have done so far and what is important to look out for as a teacher, and if you're teaching this, or some other opportunities you might have to work with the scenario that we have done so far. So let's have a look where we are at the moment. Here we have the turtle scenario as we have left it at the end of the last episode, so I can run this scenario. I can steer the turtle with my keyboard, and the snakes are running around. Okay. So far we have packed a lot in, a lot of material, a lot of concept, and we have moved forward fairly quickly. That was quite intentional. What we were aiming for here is to get to a point as quickly as we can where it starts being real fun and being a really joyful experience for the students, where they get some success feeling and some kind of feedback. So getting to this playable version was a goal. We can't keep going at this pace, packing this much in without doing some reflection and repetition, without giving them some time to digest. And so it is now a time to look at that. But first of all, before we do that, let's investigate again what's really the real motivation points here. There are 3 or 4 aspects in this scenario where motivation usually kicks in. I have done similar scenarios many times with lots of groups of school kids, sort of from 13 years upwards to 18 years, and with many teachers. And there are particular points in this where they really get a kick out of this, where the motivation comes in. And these are creating your own creatures, keyboard control, and sound. And 2 of them I haven't actually even shown you yet. What I have shown you is the keyboard control. So the moment you, in the turtle here, put this bit of code in where you check for the keyboard and turn as a reaction to this, which in terms of functionality is the point where you can control the turtle with your cursor keys, that is a really nice thing to do, where it starts becoming fun. Another thing that you can do is to let students set their own game theme. What I haven't shown you at all yet so far is just to change images. Typically, when I do a scenario like this in workshops, when I do it with teachers, and I look half an hour later, the teachers then all have when I reset this, their turtle on screen, and the sand and the letters and the snakes. If I do that with kids, they have all sorts of different things on screen. So first thing you can do is, of course, you can just change the image. So instead of a turtle, I can just go to the set image method here, and then here in the library of icons, pick something. Let's say I use a rocket instead of turtle. If I compile this now, now my turtle looks like a rocket. Then I go to my world and I change the image of that as well. Go to backgrounds and say use a space theme here. Okay, then I have rocket in the world. And then if I make my lettuce look not like lettuce, but let's see what we have. Set the image, and I use people. Let's say I've got babies floating around in space. So now I have the same program, and now my task is to pick up the babies with my rocket. So I fly through space, and now I have space snakes. Maybe I want to change the snakes into asteroids or something. But what I'm getting at here is, this is from a technical point of view, from the coding point of view, the exact same program, but it looks very different. And kids, when they play around with Greenfoot, they typically discover this. I have they just click on everything, and if I look at what they're doing, even if I haven't told them anything about it, 15 minutes in to a session, they have all sorts of different images on screen already. I actively encourage them to do this. So with when I do this with kids rather than with teachers, typically what I show them first is how to create a subclass. So I show them how to create a new animal. I say, okay, now pick another animal, say a camel, and I call it camel. And so I get them to put a camel in. And then I say, okay, I will now develop my game with a turtle and lettuce, but you can do it with any other creature, whatever you want. So sometimes, they have fluffy bunnies walking around eating pizza, or if they're boys, they have, killer eating sheep, sort of baby eating killer sheep, running around here. So things that whatever they find funny or they find engaging. And that is a very powerful thing. First of all, it gives them control. They can make their own decisions. Or even if the thing they get control over initially is only changing an image, it makes them feel really good. And that fundamentally changes ownership. Suddenly, it is not my program anymore, it's their program. Just a simple thing such as changing an image is enough for them to actually relate in a very different way to their program. And having different images actually gives them different ideas about functionality that they want to add later on as well. So that's one thing, changing the images, putting in different classes and using different classes. I will do that only in the Joy of Code series, only in the next episode. But when I do this in class, I actually do that before I do the whole moving and random thing, so that the whole work that I've shown before, I do with my turtle or with whatever creature I choose to use, but they all do with their own. So that's the first thing. Let them do their own images. The next thing, the keyboard control that we've seen is another good point where they get really excited. And the third point, where I was really quite surprised how exciting it is for them, is when we add sound. So we will do that in one of the next 1 or 2 episodes of the Joy of Code. I'll show you. We will continue the turtle thing, and we will add some sound. That is a really, really motivating thing as well, even though it's technically trivial. So these are the things that we're using to create motivation, and they usually work very, very well. Another thing to do also is let them work in pairs. If you have them working in a classroom, put 2 together in front of a computer. It works really, really well. I had that many times where they develop something like this. They have their rocket now flying around it and collecting the babies. They just get many more ideas if it's 2 of them sitting there together, and they start talking, they start laughing. And quite often, actually, they, without me saying anything, then develop this into a 2-player game. They just duplicate this class and react to 2 different keys, and suddenly they have a 2-player game. They come up with ideas like this, and in fact, at this early stage, they can already make some meaningful modifications like this. So that's the bit about motivation. So we have progressed fairly quickly so far by writing quite a lot of code in a fairly short time, because we wanted to get the interest going and motivation going. Now, to learn this properly, we have to pause every now and then and step back and reflect. There is a danger if we progress too quickly that students can play along, but they end up essentially just copying down code without gaining a full understanding of what they're actually doing. So far we have used only a small number of constructs here. What we have concentrated on was method calls and if statements. Almost everything that we do is done with method calls and if statements, and that's one of the intentional design features of Greenfoot, is that you can actually achieve quite a lot with a small number of concepts. So just method calls and if statements give you the possibility to program something like this. We have tried to do each of those concepts several times. So we have done several different method calls. We have done method calls with and without parameters. We have defined a method, and we have done that several times and called a method. And we have done if statements a number of times. We have used an if statement for the random walking. We have used an if statement for the eating of the turtle. We have, which one? I've got the snake here. In the turtle, we have used another if statement for the keyboard control. So we have tried to use the same construct several times to get some repetition going. But in this case, it's always been the case that we have shown the students what to do and they have copied it down. We now need to progress this to a point where they apply this themselves. And so it is time here now to stop a bit and put in some exercises. And as teachers, you're probably used to providing worksheets with questions where students have to fill in things. That is a good way to reinforce things, but then we can also actively reinforce things. Every now and then it is good to do just a small isolated exercise that tests single aspects. For example, here I've got somewhere, let's see whether I can find that in my scenarios, a thing called fat cat that I wrote at some stage for the exact purpose of reinforcing the constructs that we have seen so far. So this is a scenario specifically designed so that students can practice method calls and if statements. So I can. This one is an object of the myCat class, and the myCat class, when it acts, does something. Oh, actually, I've programmed something here already. Typically, when we hand this out, the action of the myCat class does nothing. We can look at this myCat class at the moment. It says here, walk left 3 steps, and then if we're not alone, then shout hooray, and then sleep for a bit. When we hand this out, this act method is empty, but the cat has inherited from cat various methods. And so we can make it, say, dance. So there are some actions that this cat can take. And they can do this, they can use these methods and interact with them interactively first, and then they can write code here in the act method to practice doing a method call, doing a sequence of method calls, doing method calls with parameters, and then including some if statements in their code. Some worksheets like this are available. So with this, together with this scenario, there's a worksheet. As a teacher, one thing you should know, let me just open my web browser here. I have somewhere in my bookmarks the Green Room. So as a teacher, what you should know is this website. It's called the Green Room. It is a teacher website where we have discussions between teachers. So we have here a whole number of people signed up. They are all teachers using Greenfoot, and there are discussions where you can ask questions and get advice, but most importantly there are resources. So here's a whole list of resources. They are categorized in different ways, and if I search for the fat cat scenario, there's actually 2 variations of it. So actually there are 3. And then here is a scenario and their worksheets, and you can download them there. So as a teacher, if you don't want to make your own worksheets initially, go to the Green Room, sign up for it. You have to be an instructor or a teacher to that. If you're a student, sorry, you have to find your work somewhere else. But you need to then pause a bit, have some reflection and some repetition and reinforcement of the scenarios. The other thing that you can use to find material is the book. Let me just show you. So here is, that's what it looks like. There is a textbook to do with Greenfoot. So if you are after more detailed written material, if you Google for Greenfoot and book, you probably find it. And that's, you know, sold commercially through Amazon or other bookstores, but the Green Room might be your first point of call. The Green Room is free. All the material there is free. There's fantastic material there. So as a teacher, if you're not sure really what kind of material you should use, sign up there, talk to other people, find some material, pause a bit, reinforce the concepts now at this point, you know, reinforce method calls, and if statements. It is quite a big difference of students to be able to copy down code or fill in so small blanks in things that we are showing them, or then to be able to sit down and do the same thing again in a different context on their own. There is a big conceptual leap there, and you have to make them do it. So after introducing these few concepts, make them apply those concepts in a different context so that it really sinks in. It has to sink in. They have to do it themselves a couple of times for them to really understand the material, and then you can move on. Okay, that's enough for today. See you next time. Bye-bye.